Hello, everyone. I'm excited today to share someone I've just met for the first time. So it's even more exciting, but from a company that I've known for a long, long time. This is Jaime Andrews from Kidding Around Yoga. And why I want to share her expertise with us today was really for us to dive deeper into this idea. How do we make kids' yoga classes more playful and creative and fun? This is something that I would say when I think about kidding around yoga over all these years, these are the words that come to mind. So to get started, let's hear from you, Jaime. Thanks for being here, first of all. And let's hear from you. Tell us a little bit about your background, because I know that you've probably come from lots of different areas. Give us a sort of short look at where you've come and what brought you to kidding around yoga.
Absolutely. And, thanks for having me here today. I'm excited to share more about myself and kidding around yoga and just talk about kids yoga. So, my background, when I get that question, I'm like, how do I summarize this one? But I would say I started just really from a wellness point for myself. I'm a personal trainer. I started there. I had over 20 years ago, and I'm like, let me do some fitness, and I'll figure out what I want to be when I grow up. But it kind of stuck. I was training clients, working in gyms, and in working with clients, I just really noticed that adults were struggling, right, with their physical fitness, with living healthy. And I'm like, my brain, which doesn't stop thinking and always analyzing, I'm like, what if we started these things earlier, where we were not in this challenging place of relearning a behavior, but it was just something that we did. So I started just looking into how to work with kids. I've always had a very strong connection with children. And somehow kidding around yoga came up in my Google search. And yoga, I dabbled in it. It wasn't huge in my life. I am incredibly energetic, fast-paced, fast talking. And I'm like, well, then yoga is not for me, because that's a very slow down space. So it always kind of scared me. But kidding around yoga, the appeal was the music and the movement and the energy that, even when researching it online, I'm like, okay, this sounds more like me. So I started teaching yoga to kids, and it's just kind of grown. I did some teaching in different environments. I stayed doing my fitness, and then I became a mom. And it just has grown from a space of, how do I want to be as a parent? And then how did I want to parent my child? So I still teach yoga to kids. It just looks a little different than when I first started. So that's kind of how I got here.
Yeah, I love that, bringing together, so that you started from the personal trainer. So you know a lot of expertise and the body and the mind and those connections and how the muscles and all that, the fitness part of it, right? The exercise. And I love how you're bringing that to yoga for children too. So you're looking at, where you want in your mind where these children are going to go to in terms of having a healthy lifestyle, and how do we teach that at a younger age in a playful way. And I love the fact that you mentioned that there's this myth that yoga is about, sitting on top of a mountain, sitting still and being all quiet. And we were discussing right before that my daughter wants nothing to do with yoga and mindfulness. Like, we are not that Instagram mom and daughter, like we never will be. That's just not us. But I think that is a myth, right? You see these children, or this thought that it's about being quiet, and it's not at all. And that's interesting that you chose kidding around yoga for that reason. And then as a mom, you were able to see how the impact it was on with your son, and using some of these tools in terms of more like not just a class, but a kids yoga off the mat and into life. Right.
Yeah.
I love that intersection. Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about, sort of, we've touched on it, but this point of difference about kidding around yoga. Sort of take us through a little deeper about, tell us more about kidding around yoga and the training.
Yeah, I think the kidding around yoga, it's just, even in the name, kidding, it's sort of like we have a lot of fun. It's very engaging. But what I like about it is the foundation is still in yoga philosophy, right? So we are truly taking a yoga class, as many of us adults know it, depending on maybe what type of yoga you do. And that's still there. The outline, if you will, is still there. However, each section, each part, each concept is taught in a way that kids can understand. Kids are going to have fun with it. Kids will stay focused and involved and be really excited. And then we we have it so that I've taught 18-month-olds all the way up into 18-year-olds and adult. I did get my 200-hour. Don't feel as connected to that group for yoga, but really at each level, being able to instill this practice in them, all the while they're having fun, they're laughing, they're moving, and leaving very, very peacefully, because we do end in peaceful garden, or yoga nidra, as most of us know it. So it's all there. And that's what I liked, because there was just something, like I said, I felt more confident in the actual program because it had a foundation.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
And I love what you're talking about too. You're doing, one of the Yoga Sutras talks about effort and surrender. And so you're bringing that into the classes. So even though you're meeting them where they're at. So for example, after school programs, right? The children are coming either completely excited and hyperactive because it's end of school and they're excited, or they're just drained because they're, dysregulated or white knuckling all day, or they're exhausted trying with the stimulation. And so their energy's down. But it sounds like you're kind of meeting them where they're at and offering them this invitation to laugh and have fun. And what better way to engage children, right? Because another thing we hear from our community is the trouble of how do you engage children, especially now where children are used to, screens and being overscheduled. They're used to a stimulating environment, right? But it sounds like
and what I even love too is allowing kids to be kids longer, right? I do feel like they are pushed to be more mature, they're faced with bigger challenges and bigger choices, and we're trying to get them to grow up so fast, and that's okay. Like, that stuff is still going to be there. Even my son, he's 6, he'll say, I don't like when people ask me what I want to be when I grow up. Like, how would I know? Right. And like, why does he need to be worried about that yet? So I'm playful with him. I'm like, why don't we make up something super silly? Like, whatever, something I won't even say. I want to come back with what we joked about the other day. We had been at a parade, and the people who have to pick up the poop after the horses. I joked. I said, why don't you be the one who picks up the poop at the parade? You can be any, right? Make it silly.
To deal with that job.
Right. It's an important job. But anyway, I also, because recently this past weekend, I had a family class, a free one. So you don't really know who's coming. I had a 3-year-old and a 13-year-old, huge age difference. Right. And at first I got really nervous, and I'm like, how am I going to do this? I have to teach the younger age group. However, I'm like, why do I feel so nervous that this barely teenager, he can be a little silly too. He can play some games, and so I like that we also can allow the space for silliness and fun and laughter throughout, your early teen years.
Right. Yeah. And so let's talk further about that. Let's look at, what are sort of your top tips for creating this environment for these classes, but also ensuring, that they're safe, that they're inclusive, that they're meeting their energy to where they're at, or that it's engaging for everyone.
Yeah. I think, like, I'm going to speak a little bit more again, I think, when I talk sort of to the younger age, maybe like the props, music, like having very engaging things to use and to bring, right? So if we have the little ones, yes, they do move faster. They stay focused for less amounts of time. So I'm going to have more things to offer, more props and fun things. Lots of games and activities, and they can be short, they can be long. And what's great too is that can happen in the moment, right? So like when we talk about energy or focus or potentially behaviors, I can have a game or an activity last a long time, or I can kind of have a real short one and kind of keep the class flowing, or that's not working today based on how we're feeling, kind of thing. For me, it's after, many years of teaching and learning my own style and my own approach, I really try to connect with the class itself in the beginning as much as I can. So if that's like if it's like a one-time class, that can be definitely a little bit harder, but even greeting in the beginning can be really helpful. If it's a series of classes, and you'll probably like this, I always start with yoga in a book when I have a new class, especially young ones, because children know how to act when they take out a book, right? Because they've been read to. Yeah, since they were babies.
I love that.
Yeah, so I can start there because I can start to gauge, like, what's the energy of this group? I teach in preschools and daycares. So there's a set rule and expectation in that environment that the kids are aware of. And I'm not yet because I haven't been there. So I'm engaging them in the book. They know how to act. I'm getting to know them, and we're connecting pretty quickly. And then that helps me to gauge moving forward. Are we going to be like a high energy group, or are we going to need to be the low energy group, or do I have a mix? So I like that, and getting to know the kids, because I think personalities pop up really quickly too when given a safe space to do that. So you're going to have the kids who are super involved, the kids who are really scared or shy, the ones who might show you a behavior right away that like, I'm going to challenge you a little bit. So then I can start to feel that out as well. It's important to me to, so I kind of pay attention to that. And then just really kind of respecting the kids from the beginning. As far as really being inclusive and safe, I mean, providing lots of options for things, whether that's like specific poses or positions, like, hey, we can try this or we can do that. If that feels good or this feels good, not forcing. Visual aids, like, so there's a learning, there's a listening and an actual visual, and really sharing expectation of sort of like, here's what's going to happen today kind of thing. So that was a lot. I mean, hopefully I answered that question, but
no, it's amazing.
All kind of comes together.
I want to highlight a few things you said there. I love what you were talking about the storybook as a starter, because a lot of kids yoga teachers sort of end there, but I love what you said there. I spoke to a reading specialist recently, Jody Rodriguez, and she said the exact same thing, what you said, that when you have a storybook, they already know how to behave. So I just want to highlight what you just said there. It's exactly true. They know how to be, they know how that connection. They've already had that training in the classroom or wherever else they be. So that is perfect. You're already setting up that environment, something familiar to them, and they love the connection of the story. So I love that.
And then I mean, most books you can easily turn into yoga, right? There's animals, it's very easy to start to incorporate. So that shift is very simple as well.
Yeah. And that's exactly, of course, why I wrote yoga stories. So I'm passionate about that. But, and I also love you talking about inclusive, because you're also talking about some trauma informed language there too, providing lots of options. So you're working with whoever shows up, whatever may be going on for them at that time. They might have additional needs, or they might just have preferences or different things that are going on for them, different energy levels. So it sounds like you're being flexible, you're giving them options. I love that. And I think about the props. Were there other props? Were there specific props that you absolutely love, you have to have each time?
Yeah, man, I should have had them here with me. One of the ones I love very much is the glitter jar or the calm down jar. I find all ages connect to that really, really fast, right? The younger ones just love the visual. And if you're not sure what that is, it's, a jar with some sparkly or some something inside that we can shake up. So that in and of itself is engaging to watch the sparklies mix around and settle. Oh, I mean, I even have had them in my office before, and I've had like adult clients like, what is that? And then I show them and they're like, I love that. Even I felt calm. So I love that. And I really just talk about, it's very easy, I think, for children, depending on the age, how I explain it. Like sometimes we have a whole lot going on in our brains or our body, and I shake it on up, and I have them kind of gather close, and we just watch it, and I'll be like, right. And it's like, let's just watch what happens. Nobody make a noise, nobody make a sound. And then we watch it settle, and I'm like, what's happening? And they're like, it's coming to the ground, it's this, it's that. And I'm like, exactly. That's exactly what we can do to those big feelings, those big emotions, all those thoughts. If we can just pause, they'll start to settle. But then I'll do it again. And I'm like, but they might get mixed up again. And we can just keep doing this all day long if we need to. But they love it. They'll sit there. I've had 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds. It's amazing. It's amazing to me, how long they will just sit there and watch it. If given the permission as well, right? Like, let's just sit here for a second. So that's a big one. The Hoberman sphere, which is, that little ball that opens and closes. The kids love that. I also love bells, to get that quiet, like we got to listen, and really opening up that space. The singing bowl, they love that. Because it's kind of magical. And I'll tell them that. I'm like, my bowl's my bowl can sing. Do you believe that? And they'll be like, no. Right. And then they're like so mesmerized by this sound. And so just small things like that. Like sometimes, and I begin with the meditation usually. And sometimes it's like, we're there for 10 minutes, just, doing an activity like that, something so mindful. But
exactly. I was
then
going to say
within
with
class, yeah.
the calming jar too, that your whole explanation is awesome. And also you're teaching children how to pay attention,
Hmm.
right? So you didn't have
Yeah.
to stand up and say, "Hey, everyone, look over here, pay, like settle down, pay attention." All you do is you use that, and they can't help themselves but look at it, right? And so you're teaching them
Right.
how to do that without
And
having
yeah,
to
and in
use
that
the
moment,
words.
we're basically doing that because we just started class. And that's the thing too. I always keep in mind that like starting a class is a lot for people, right? And we're immediately like, let's go. Right. Like it gives them time also to start to bring it down, to get ready and prepared.
Yeah,
Um,
I love that.
within class, like scarves, beanie babies, again, depending on the age, kind of the younger, the more sort of things I will have for them to hold or to play with. Um, so yeah, so lots of different things. Sometimes it's just fun too. I'm like, I'm just searching for fun things to bring to class more than probably the kids needed. But
Right. I
yeah.
love that. Oh, that's excellent. So tell us a success story. We love stories here. Is there something you
Yeah.
can share with us, something that happened with a child that you could see the impact of this sort of creative, fun, playful way of
Yeah,
teaching?
yeah, definitely. As I was thinking about that, I'm like, I don't know, right? I just kind of go and do my thing and forget. But I was thinking about this group I had, a preschool, and this young girl, a little one. They were like 4. She would come in and she would cry. She was crying. It was like sort of like an after school program, and they came in. It was a big group,
Yeah.
and she would sit there holding her stuffy, crying. And I really just spent time like, hi, how are you? Like, what's your name? But not too much pressure, right? Because obviously there was something there. And unfortunately, I don't have contact with the parents, in those types of settings. So I can't really dive too deep into it because I just don't, the school I'm really just coming in to teach. But
Yeah.
each class, she would each class come like crying, and
Yeah.
holding that stuffy. And each time I would engage with her, compliment on something, and I would always invite her to do the activities. And it was always no. And I'm like, no worries. Like, just sit there. I'm so glad you're just here with us today. Do you want to sit next to me? Small things like that. And, over the course of the series, she was able to, like, the crying stopped, the like holding on to the stuffy as if, her complete comfort and safety started to release. She would smile. She would respond. Now, I can't say she was full on like kidding around yoga style into the class necessarily, but I could tell that she started to want to be there in the way that she was able to open up and to accept the things and slightly share maybe in the closing circle. So, I like to think that that was maybe, somewhat of a success story, and just really allowing the space for children to be who they need to be and go at the pace that they need to be. And even for me on a bigger level is like, maybe she doesn't even want to be there, right? Like very
Mm.
often us as parents, we sign our children up for all these things, whether that's because we want it for them or we need it because we need to work and we need childcare. And
Mhm.
so really just honoring her for being there, and because it may not have been a choice. So how could I provide more choice when she actually is there for
Right.
that 1 hour?
That's so
So
beautiful. Yeah, that's so beautiful. There's so many pieces to that. And that I'm going to reiterate what you said, right? I was thinking about that you're creating this space, you're holding this space for that child, letting her show up how she wants to show up, because in other places in her life she probably doesn't have that option, right?
right.
There's certain demands on her, or certain commitments, or certain ways of being that she has to be, and she probably isn't yet able to, right? And so she's
Yeah.
got some inner resources or inner things that she's dealing with, and this might be the only place where you've accepted her, for
Yeah.
who she be. And I love that, even though it doesn't fit under the idyllic kidding around yoga, it's for all children. It doesn't have
Right.
to be that the end goal isn't that every single child is running around creative and playful and engaged. No, that is not the reality. And also what you said there about, for us moms, that my daughter's not interested in yoga mindfulness, but I'm sure there's some ripple effects there. Absolutely, no kidding. But if I signed her, I remember when she was young, I was looking to hire teachers into the school so that I could put her into a yoga class, because I thought if she learns from someone else, right, it won't be from
Oh
me.
yeah. Try
But
that.
that's my agenda, right? And she didn't always want to go either. And so if she's not ready to learn or ready to be there, then you're right. It's not necessarily, she's just not ready and not available to take it on. And so we can see that yoga for children isn't necessarily for everyone all the time. And that's
Right.
okay, because often people will say, what do I do? And is it okay to let the child sit to the side? Yes. You
Hmm.
hold the space. I love how you welcomed her and you complimented her, and then she was able to warm up on her own time. And no doubt, I'm sure next round, it might
Yeah,
be different.
I am interested, to be continued. If she is
Yeah,
signed up, we
yeah.
will do another one in the upcoming season.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's that some of us just take longer to warm up to things, and that it was a really big class and it was very loud. And even maybe that just in and of itself was the challenge for her. Than in a smaller environment, she could be more successful, and I would love to, and again, if that was my own class, like I would attempt to learn more, through the
Yes.
family.
Right.
And again, in the big class size, it is actually kind of harder to be able to do that as well than the smaller settings as well. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, and I want to speak to too. We talked about the child, but also speak to what you went through. So you provided her as a model to, to take each moment as it comes, but also to look under the surface. So you were able to think, okay, here's the behaviors that I'm seeing, but I'm not going to take it personally, right? It's
Yeah.
not a personal thing. It's not that she doesn't like you. It's not that you're not a good teacher. It's not that you're a failure. It's not that you're not good enough. All those things, but you were able to see that here's the behaviors I see above the surface of the iceberg, but there's other things going on that in this instance I don't know about because it's after school situation, but that there's other things there going on. And so that's
Yeah.
super important. There's a maturity there, a confidence there as a teacher, as a person working with young children to know it's not about us, right?
Yeah.
Children are going to show up
Yeah.
in different ways. So I love that.
Yeah,
And
I
that
like
kind
that.
of
Thanks for saying that. And I think it is true. And I mean, like I've done this for so long. And I sometimes joke in my own realm of even just training clients, like, you lose a client or you lose a student or a family doesn't come back or they don't answer your text or your call. You have to get comfortable in that space that like I'm not for everyone, right? And like
right.
I will find the right people on my journey and in my path. And right, like because I do have a certain amount of energy and I do teach in a way that will work for some and not, but there's enough of us to go around.
Oh yeah,
And so
totally. Yeah.
so I think that that's definitely, and I do work with kidding around yoga, do some teacher trainings and other certification processes and lead webinars. And it's definitely something that I share is really like finding yourself as a teacher, like, and what that's
Mhm.
going to look like. And that's when you'll be the best teacher. And sometimes releasing that control
Yes.
is when we're going to have the class that works out the best,
Yeah,
probably.
exactly. And there's a lot of times where it has nothing to do with us, right? It has all to
Right.
do with the child or the family and nothing at all to do with us.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah. But it can
Yeah.
get scary. You've got a big group of kids and like you're like, I gotta keep them doing something for 45 minutes. Like, and this
Right.
energy is wild, or I'm getting no response. And so I'll
Yeah.
feel myself kind of, I'm like, I've got the tools, like they're in there. And
Mhm.
like we say with children, if I can calm myself down as well, I'll be able to tap into that information. If I keep myself really worked up about this, I'm not going to be
Yes.
able to access what I need to
Right.
properly lead this class.
Yes. I've had to do that recently where I was thinking about I've got to reframe because I work in schools now too. And some days I just feel this anxiety. Like sometimes I have trouble sleeping. I think, oh my goodness, what if I'm going to get a really out of control classroom? And it's just what if? Like, what if
Yeah.
I can't do what I want to do? Or I can't, what if someone sees that the class is out of control while I'm teaching? Or it's just the what ifs, right? Or what if I get hit in the head? A child's thrown something. I don't know. Just like all these what ifs. And then I have to reframe it and think, use our tools, right? Take a deep breath on the way, while I'm driving. It's going to be okay. I reframe it as I get to do this. This is a joy and a gift, and it's going to be okay. And they'll feed off my energy. So if I'm calm, right, then my fears won't be showing. So,
Right.
yeah, we have to still do that. No matter how many years we've been doing this work, it's still there. Yeah.
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 Yeah. I get nervous before I time I have a client. And I'm like, I've been doing this for 25 years. But I
Yes.
like that because to me, it means
Yeah.
I care, right? Like
Care.
if
Yes.
that's
So
numb,
true.
do any of this, you know, if I see whether it's an adult or a child, and like if I'm like whatever, like I should probably move on. Like this isn't for me anymore. The fact that I have emotion come up, it's because I care and I want this to go well and I want you to have a good experience and or feel challenged or whatever I'm doing. So for me, I'm like, I'm still connected, you know, I'm still doing the right work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I want to loop back because I was thinking about what we hear more often is, how do I make all these creative plans? Like, how do I keep up with all that? And how do I manage these big emotions? And what you're saying is, looking after yourself first, right? First and foremost is how we deal with the big emotions. So anything else you want to say about to those educators out there who are just, really stuck on how do I make this really happen?
Yeah, you know, I mean, I think like, you know, I do like taking that moment for yourself. I tell that before a class, before a training, you know, before the day. Like I have this dream of going into a school and before the kids come in, for the teachers leading, like going onto the system and doing like a 2 minute, 1 minute, whatever you got, 30 seconds, where we all just take like a collective breath to begin that day, because it comes fast, you know, and I don't know, it'd be just fun to see what changes happened if we could do that. But really meaning that, like, making sure that you're in a great space to get this started, you know. But you know, for us from a kidding around yoga perspective, and you know, we do have outlines and we do have lesson plans and we have ways, whether that's in a yoga classroom or an education system, we have ways to, you know, to keep you on track, to things to try, things to do. But, you know, I think the big behaviors, they are there. You know, I've taught for a while. I've seen the transition, you know, and the energy that kids show up with. And so I think it's really realizing like what's beneath it, like really trying to ignore, if you can, like what's actually like coming at me and like what might be beneath it. And really, how can I support that, you know? So it's so breaking that down a little bit more, you know, I guess trying to gather my thoughts so that I don't say that I can bring this in an answer, but how can I support that child, right? Like, what do they need? So we have this behavior, there is a need. It's hard to come at all the needs, especially in a school classroom, because there's a lot of kids. But maybe you want to be my helper for the day. Maybe you just need to sit next to me. You know, maybe you need to not be participating in this exercise. Maybe you need to go draw or whatever that might be. So trying to sort of figure that out and help them in that moment so that we can calm down. Sometimes it has to be approached from a class level. Like right now, things are a little loud. Let's all just come back to our mats. We're going to take a couple breaths, or I like to just do a quiet om a couple times to bring the level and the energy down, versus me raising my voice to stop a behavior. I'm going to get quieter so that they need to get quieter to actually hear me, right? Whereas I used to more do like a namaste, I more now do like om. And I do that until everybody joins in, you know, or the bell. If we've introduced the bell in the beginning, I can bring the bell back at any point in the class, because we already did our listening meditation. So we've established the expectation. When I hear the bell, I'm going to get quiet. So I think that's a couple things there. You know, I think also if you're from a yoga teacher perspective, where you have more control, kind of knowing your size limit of a class, like what is the group you like to work with? Where do you feel the most comfortable so that you don't get in over your head? Whereas I used to feel comfortable with 20, like that's for the young ones, that's almost too much for me now, because the energy and the behaviors are big. And I think kind of lastly, we kind of react to behaviors because we have to, because they're coming at us. But then how can we build that into our curriculum or our class themes, if you will? So these are the behaviors I want to be seeing, or I don't want to be seeing. And so we're constantly teaching them throughout. So over time, we're also teaching the skill. We're not just reacting and trying to stop the behavior. We're helping them to not even need to have it in the first place.
Yeah, I love it. So how can we find about Kidding Around Yoga? How can we find you and your work, and how do we sign up for some of your seminars or your training?
Yeah, we would love it. We have, I mean, as far as like, I'll talk from Kidding Around Yoga perspective, and then me personally, I mean, Kidding Around Yoga We are kiddaroundyoga.com. We've got so many programs, whether you want virtual stuff or you want the in-person, we do have both. We also have full-on certifications if you want to become a kids yoga teacher, but we also have courses and even just lesson plans, and where we have each season we launch a kit that has some lesson plans and some workshop and craft ideas in there. So, which can be put into the classroom setting. So that I would just go to our main website and follow a whole bunch of links. I'm personally in Raleigh, North Carolina. So I am hosting a training, getting on the books now in February for an in-person training. I do some pop-up classes locally. It was kind of my rebuild post-pandemic. We got bumped out of a lot of places, and it took a little longer to get back in with children specifically, but I also moved, so I kind of had to rebuild my following and my community. So I just teamed up with some businesses and kind of use their space and teach yoga. And then I am mostly in preschools right now. Since my son's at school, that time of day works well for me, so I go into some preschools locally. But on Instagram and Facebook is probably the best place to find my stuff. Is it best to share that, or you'll link that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, share, and I'll link it as well.
Yeah. So for Facebook, it's Kidding Around Yoga with Jaime, and I am Jaime. And then on Instagram, it's KAY underscore with underscore JAY. So, I do try to keep my stuff up to date there as often as possible. So yeah.
Oh, great. It's so exciting. So fabulous to finally meet you. So appreciate you taking the time. Thanks so much,
Yeah.
Jaime.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. See you then.
Thanks. Bye.